Last week, Hufanga was in a dome, and he stunk. So let's get that guy back in the weather. Am I right, Matty Barrows? Let's get some weather for Hufanga, see if this works out.
Yeah, the guy grew up in Oregon, so he's used to kind of wet, mucky weather. So he ought to be literally in his element for these upcoming games for sure. And what struck me is I remember reading reporting stories about that famous 1982 championship game, the Dwight Clark catch game. This team used to go to places like L.A. and Arizona in the playoffs because it was so rainy in the Bay Area. I always thought that was such a kind of a foreign concept. Like, how can this area, it's been in so much drought recently, be so wet that a team is forced to go to a drier climate? But I think we're kind of seeing that pattern emerge this year. I wonder whether that might be in the offing for the 49ers.
1982 was an historic year as far as the rainfall goes. I actually got stranded at school. I had to sleep at my principal's house in 8th grade, Matt. True story, 1982.
That's not appropriate.
Wow.
No choice. Yeah. I couldn't get home.
Is this just a way of telling us how young you are, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, I'm
glad you saw through that, Matty.
I was a
Thank you.
redshirt 8th grader, Matt. Oh, boy. Seriously, I had to ride a horse to school.
Matty, what about, D'Amico Ryans? It's not just like that Huff has not been playing perfectly. What it takes to get to a point when a coach or a coordinator will get in front of a podium and really put it out there to the media, what does that mean about how the 49ers are feeling about Hufanga right now?
I mean, I think that Hufanga's had a sensational season. I think D'Amico Ryans is very much taking every opportunity to critique his team and to do it publicly as well, because this team is on a roll, and you got to figure out a way to kind of make these guys sharp and make sure that they're not lax. So both he and Shanahan have been relishing any mistake that this team has made in recent weeks in an effort to kind of continue that momentum. So to me, it's a typical mistake that a young safety is going to make, especially one as aggressive as Hufanga's been. But like I said, I feel like all the coaches, especially Ryans and especially Kyle Shanahan, are really kind of seizing on any opportunity to kind of coach up these guys and remind these guys that you're not perfect, that mistakes have been made, and you do need to sharpen. This is not going to cut it in the playoffs.
How do you balance that flex and release this weekend, knowing that, for the most part, you're locked in either as the 2 or the 3? There's a chance you could still be the top seed. You want to keep everyone healthy, but you want guys to be sharp going in the playoffs. How do they play this delicate balancing game?
Well, I mean, they have the really nice reminder that no one at this point last week, everybody thought this team, this defense especially, was just going to dance right over Jarrett Stidham, have an unknown guy, and the Raiders were kind of teetering on falling out of the playoffs. And all of a sudden the Raiders took them to overtime and nearly upset the 49ers. So that's fresh in their mind. I do think that Shanahan is going to be scoreboard watching, getting updates on where things stand. Christian McCaffrey, for example, is dealing with an ankle injury. This seems like a really nice opportunity to kind of give him a half off rolling into the playoffs. I don't think you need to worry about him being ready for the first playoff game. So I'm sure there are a handful of guys that Shanahan would love to kind of pull out of the game early and might do that if there's nothing to be gained from a victory.
Matt, what's the specific thought right now with Debo? I know it's week 2 already of the practice week, but what do you think their plan is with him, and what is his relative health for next week?
I mean, I think it's good. He practiced in full the last couple of days, so that suggests that he's not still bothered by this ankle knee issue. I think it's a conditioning issue for him. You don't want to rev him up to 100% of his snaps after he's been off for I guess it's been 3 weeks. I think for a lot of these guys, Deebo Samuel, Elijah Mitchell, You want to get them rolling. I don't think you want to give them their full allotment of snaps, but you want to make sure that there's momentum going into that first postseason game. So, I think that's the bottom line. That's the key word. They want to get enough momentum, enough snaps, enough action for these guys to feel like that they're not just kind of going fresh into the playoffs without having had any games in the lead up to them.
Does that apply to Brock Purdy as well in terms of how much time he's going to see? Because you obviously want to get him reps. He's still very young in his career, yet you don't have much in the way of a backup other than Josh Johnson. How do they play that balancing act with a guy who could use any and all reps that he gets?
Yeah, I mean, that's a fantastic question. It's one that maybe we'll ask Kyle Shanahan later today, because you could make the argument that, it would be nice for Josh Johnson to get some reps. I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility that Johnson would be called upon to kind of salvage a game in the playoffs. So, he's never played in a game for the 49ers. He's had all sorts of practice. I think in that 2020 season, they were really kind of close to having to play him at the end there. And he didn't have a lot of experience at that point. But, that's something to ask. If there's nothing to be gained in the fourth quarter, is it more important for Brock Purdy to continue to get snaps? He's still a neophyte as far as the NFL is concerned, or is it more important to kind of get him kind of safe on the sideline and to give Josh Johnson snaps? That'll be interesting to see what Shanahan says.
Okay, first off, Matty, breaking news, the NFL has approved the postseason plan that was floated out there yesterday. The vote has gone down. That has been approved. We'll go over that with our listeners a little bit more later on with regard to what that means for the Chiefs, the Bills, the Bengals, and the Ravens. To your knowledge, was there any conversation over the last couple of days, that idea of an eighth team on both sides, like you would have had to talk to all teams, including the 49ers. Was there any discussion around the 49ers about how this was going to play out?
I don't think so. At least I'm not privy to that. I mean, this obviously is affecting the AFC more than anything else. So I think it was really among those teams and those teams that are in the playoffs that were probably a deeper part of the conversation. That's another good question. You guys are filling up my notebook with excellent questions. If I run into Jed York, that'll be something to ask him, whether that was ever kind of floated as an option, because it would have benefited a team like the Seahawks. Some of these teams that are sort of on the edge of the playoffs going into this weekend. I'm sure the 49ers, if you ask them, give them truth serum, want to keep it to as few a number of teams as possible,
right?
Heightening their chances of going all the way.
Yeah, without a doubt. And Washington would have been back in play had they expanded to 8. We went through all these machinations yesterday. Nick Bosa, NFL sack leader, could be closing in on Defensive Player of the Year. How much does that play into his usage on Sunday?
I mean, Kyle Shanahan's going to give these guys every opportunity. I remember that last game, 2018, when George Kittle was shooting for the tight end record for yards in the season. And, Shanahan, engineered a game plan to get Kittle that number, the number that he needed. So he's conscientious of that. I think that, player safety, again, if this is a blowout or if there's nothing to be gained, discretion outweighs, a sack record, things like that. I think Nick Bosa gets Defensive Player of the Year. Whether he gets 5 sacks in this game or 0 sacks in this game, I think that's probably wrapped up at this point. But the sack record, the single season sack record, is very much at play. I don't know how my scouting report on David Blau is kind of incomplete. I don't know how much scrambling ability he has, but it seems like 2 sacks is not out of the realm of possibility for Nick Bosa, in which case he would tie Alden Smith's 2012 record, and I'm sure that's something that Bosa would really love, a great feather in his cap and a great season.
All I know about David Blau is he's not as fast as his wife. Do you remember on Hard Knocks? He's the one whose wife was like an Olympic sprinter, and he would help her go work out. He was like a part of that story. There was a storyline, a good 10 minutes of Hard Knocks storyline that was all about David Blau in this preseason.
This is when he was with the Lions?
Yes.
Oh, that might be the most interesting part of Hard Knocks. I heard that Hard Knocks was not the greatest Hard Knocks they've had so far.
I don't know. Dan Campbell, he keeps some eyeballs here and there. That's for sure. And by the way,
Melissa Gonzalez, by the way, Colombian hurdler.
There
for
you
those
go.
of you scoring at home.
And yes, and I hope that all of you are. So, speaking of things that are easy to look at, I did want to ask you this before you get out of here, Maddie, because I've gotten the question from many friends, and I find it to be a funny question. They're like, "Hey, if Jimmy Garoppolo is back by late January, is he the quarterback?" And I'm like, are you guys crazy? Like, Brock Purdy's never lost, and if they're still playing end of January, of course they're going to stick with Brock. However, Maddie, is there a chance that Jimmy serves as the 49er backup later in the playoffs?
Oh, yeah, I think so. I mean, I think it would be later in the playoffs. I mean, we're talking like championship game at the earliest, and probably the Super Bowl as the most realistic. So your point is well taken. If they're in the Super Bowl, it probably means that Brock Purdy has done a pretty good job, and that the 49ers are not going to switch horses midstream. Now, having said that, if you go back to 2019, the 49ers rolled through the divisional round and the championship round and got to the Super Bowl, but they did so amid criticism of Jimmy Garoppolo. Like, Jimmy Garoppolo was just there to hand the ball off.
Yep.
That Kyle Shanahan was taking the ball out of Jimmy Garoppolo's hands. That was the narrative, a national narrative. Like, Shanahan does not trust Jimmy Garoppolo, and that narrative has kind of stuck ever since then. So there are scenarios out there that the 49ers win these playoff games with a quarterback that's not exactly throwing for 3 TDs and 450 yards. So I think we as 49ers followers know that every scenario involving a quarterback is on the table. There's no shortage of plot twists when it comes to this position. So I don't want to rule out any possibility, but the fact that Garoppolo could be healthy at the end of January, at the beginning of February, is very much on the table.
Yeah. Well, come on. You know that he's not gone yet. Let's go, people. You know that name's going to come up in some form at some point in some way. I just believe that. Maddie, great stuff, man. Stay dry. Thank you.
All right. Talk to you guys later.
All right, Matt.